Today, we are talking about how to say yes to everything and work out how to do it on the way down. It's a very interesting term here called the efficacy effect, and we're going to talk about more of that later. And I'm really excited for this episode because today's guest is a phenomenal woman who I've admired for some time now. And she is an expert in something that I value very highly. And we'll be talking more about that. And there might be something very special that we share about this actually that I'm already anticipating. And Annie Harvey is on a mission to help purpose-driven professionals prevent burnout, cultivate resilience, and lead with kindness. From her early days as a primary school teacher to owning a thriving tutoring franchise, Annie has worn many hats. She's a TEDx speaker, a #1 Amazon best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a mindfulness trainer, laughter therapy expert, and most recently, a dementia doula. Oh my Lord, I'm excited for this. Welcome to the Coaching Circle, Annie Harvey.
Thank you so much, Toni. That was a great intro. I love it. Thank you.
Oh, I love sharing it. I'm just so excited for what we can have a chat about. And like I said to you before we started recording, we're having a chat, and I'm like, we've got to start recording because otherwise we're going to talk about stuff that should be recorded. So, like, Annie, there's so much I know that we're going to cover in this episode. And where I want to start from is a place that I always start with people because, a lot of the listeners here are people that have businesses. They might be coaches or practitioners or therapists, but there's other business owners as well that listen. So tell me a bit about what led you to start. And I guess I could say this business, but you've been in business for quite some time. So tell us a bit about your business history and what's important to you about what you do and why you do it.
I immigrated here in 2006, and I left quite a big marketing job in the UK. That was my original background. I kind of went from PA or EA, as you call it in Australia, into marketing communications. Ran a little bit of my own business before we emigrated, and we only came here for 2 years, and I'm still here in 2025. So Adelaide, South Australia is doing something wonderful for us, I think. And I don't know, it's interesting. My husband and I were talking about it last night, and that both of us have had about 17, maybe 18 different careers so far, which, some of your listeners might even switch off now. They don't want to hear about that. But my dad thought it was the most awful thing in the world when he was alive. He was a bank manager all his life, and this fly-by-night woman and husband who were just moving through jobs all the time. And that's just the way we roll. There's nothing wrong with it. It's different. Some people don't understand us. Lots of people are intrigued by us. And I think everything has been purpose driven. Particularly what I'm doing at the moment is as I near the age of 60 next year, is what legacy am I leaving?
Yes, yes, I love that. And look, I relate to having a few different careers as well, Annie. And I've never really understood how people stay doing the same thing for like 50 years or 30 years. And I like the variety and the adventure as well. So tell us a bit about where you're at now. Like what is your, I guess, your vision? You mentioned legacy. What
Mm.
is your big vision for what you're doing?
And it's a personal vision, which sometimes is hard to talk about. I wasn't able to have children, and that was always my dream. I'll just be a housewife and have kids.
Mm.
Life took a different turn. But I have been a school teacher, and I've been a tutor or franchisee of a tutoring business for 13 years. So I've always wanted to do something for children,
Mm.
and something that I'll reveal a little bit later. But I got the opportunity of working with very young children at a preschool in South Australia during COVID, both online and in the room with them. And this thing that I never thought, I just kind of photocopied it in my back bedroom, I never thought would take off. And it is traveling around the world helping children with, particularly in Africa at the moment, with transgenerational trauma
Mm.
and working with some clinical psychologists. I'm not a psychologist, but I just have lots of the resources and the evidence-based background, I think. So
Mm.
and finally putting young ones with old people in aged care together, which we hear a lot more about these days.
Oh, wow. Yes, I love that. And I'm really keen to hear more about that. And, Annie, it's really timely actually that you're talking about this because I went to an evening with Gabor Mate last night at the like
So did
I
I.
did do. I'm amazed I didn't see you there because I seem to run into these folks.
Yes.
And it was really great, like listening to what he was talking about around childhood trauma and or children even being able to express their emotions and have their needs met and have that sense of connection and being able to be authentic.
Mm,
That's such a thing. And I know, like you said, during the pandemic, the increase in what people used to come to me and say, my child's got anxiety, can you help them? Or
yeah.
whatever that was. It was really incredible. So yeah, so tell me a bit more about, you just mentioned there's something that you photocopied in your back room that's now going around the world.
So yeah, so it's based on this laughter therapy, which I can explain. But I was called down to a childcare centre in Keith, like a 4 hour drive from Adelaide. Can you help the kids with their stress and their anxiety because they're hand sanitizing so much? And that's a pretty hard thing for 3 and 4 year olds to do, however many
Mm,
times a day. And obviously stressed educators. And having my own story of burning out as a primary school teacher, I knew I wanted to help the adults. I hadn't worked with such young children. So I went off down there thinking, not really sure what's going to happen here, but let's just enjoy it. And I took some photocopied, not even color, black and white cards that I thought might help, and I'll leave the staff with them. I gave it, I think I called it the little box of still at the time. It's completely
mm.
changed its name now, and drove away after a couple of days spending time with them, thinking, no, I have no idea what's going to happen, but let's hope something good comes out of this. And then I trained the educators again online a few months later, and they were all tasked with observing 3 young children every day, playing the game. It's called the Giggle Game, playing that 3 times a day, and just observing the differences in children. And I knew that generally the stress levels would improve over the whole area of that childcare centre. But what I didn't know is things like there's 2 little girls who have selective mutism. So they don't speak at childcare at all, they speak at home.
Mm.
They asked, and apparently still do ask every day, to play the giggle game. They ask out loud, they laugh out loud, they do some mindful breathing, and then they go back to not saying anything. But that was an incredible turnaround. It also has it built cohesion in the classrooms as well. That's just stuff I hadn't really thought about because
Mm.
mainly my work up until then, certainly with the laughter therapy, had been with adults.
Yeah, yeah, wow, that is so powerful. And that really, like, I felt something in that when you said about these girls with selective mutism, because I remember when I have one daughter who's now just turned 22, but I remember when I first took her to childcare and I'd been at home with her until she was 2. And I remember they had to just about like tear her off of me for me to be able to leave her at childcare, and it was heart-wrenching, and she did not love being in that space.
Mm.
And I think like now what I think about and what I know about connection and kids and stuff, like it, like I think I need to do some work on myself about that. But I think that is incredible that we can then look at, okay, what are other ways that we can actually meet the needs of these children so that they can be authentic and feel safe in expressing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've learned very recently, I've gone down a huge rabbit hole in the area of ADHD, both adults and children. A lot of my friends are getting diagnosed at the moment. Lots of people and children and adults with ADHD have what we call low vagal tone. So their vagus nerve, which is our longest nerve from our brainstem down to our gut, it sends messages to our organs, takes messages back to our brain. That's often stuck, is a good description. If you have ADHD, it's stuck for all of us, probably on different parts of our day. And
Mm,
laughter and other things are a way of getting that nerve unstuck and increasing that vagal tone for those kids, and also bringing it, which is a school term, bringing them back into their window of tolerance. So that's bringing them out of fight, flight, like instantly. And that's because really laughing out loud, all that is deep breathing. And we all know what we're supposed to be doing. Maybe we don't actually. Lots of people don't really know what that means. We're
yeah.
laughing, we're laughing out, we're breathing out longer than we're breathing in. That's effectively what we do, and we laugh out loud. And it
Mm,
instantly is a pattern interrupt, sometimes it's called, and it really helps those kids as well and adults.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Is this similar to the connection about why humming is affects the vagal nerve as well, doesn't it? Or like,
Yep, I've
yeah.
actually got a hummingbird in my set of cards. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. And you know what? This is funny, not funny, haha, but like we'll do that later. But the things that are popping into my mind is that, like, I grew up with my dad had a lot of sadness and depression, and he had a friend who had a lot of depression as well. And one of the things that, and I carried a lot of my dad's sadness for a lot of my life. I felt a lot very responsible for a lot of his emotions. And I've always used laughter, and I found, and this relates to his friend, used to always have quite a quick wit and use comedy a lot. And even if you look at, say, like I grew up, my mum's Scottish, so I grew up not personally with Billy Connolly, but listening to Billy Connolly,
Mm.
right? And you listen, hear his childhood experiences and the trauma that he went through, and like is that just that people are drawn to laughter and wanting to laugh and help other people laugh because of the way it helps dissolve pain? Or,
It's a
what are
great
your thoughts
question.
about that?
And in fact, that wonderful man that gave us the lecture last night, if you remember the question right at the end, if you stay till the end, because she took a lot of questions, was the lady that had been to 30 years of therapy and she still hadn't seemed to move through what she had experienced. And he said, you need to get into your body. And that's
Mm,
exactly what laughter is, whether it's
yeah.
something funny on the TV, or comedian, or just, as we do in laughter yoga, we just laugh, we choose to laugh out loud. And
Mm,
so it's very somatic. And I
mm,
think often with everything that's in our head, and we all have to work on those stories that we've inherited from our parents as well. We never really think about how we get it out from the body.
mm.
And laughter has been an incredible tool for me, through some difficult years with my parents. And it's used all around the world with people with depression, people having kidney dialysis. They actually do this in kidney dialysis wards in the East Coast in Australia.
Wow.
Um, but it's a hard thing for me to sell as a businesswoman. I'm
Well,
the laughter therapist, or the laughter lady, as they know me in Adelaide.
yeah, okay, yeah, because and that's just such a thing, isn't it? Like your offers always come down to how you can package them, like packaging it for a way that someone's like, yes, that sounds like something that I need in my business. Because the thing itself, how do you translate that into actual results or, um, yeah, measurable change, I guess. But I feel like you've done that, Annie. You've been able to
I don't know
measure
how.
the
I
change.
wish I could say how I've done it, but yeah. So the two things I talk a lot about burnout, and everyone knows that, but I talk about a specific part of burnout called inefficacy, and nobody talks about it because no one really knows what it means. And then I have this laughter thing, and I'm a mindfulness trainer as well. Is much easier. Most people don't necessarily like it or know really what it is, but they know of the word, and obviously it's been around for thousands of years. But the laughter thing, for me to be ironically taken seriously about what laughter can do for business people and
Mm.
kids is, yeah, it's can be challenging. But I did a crazy TEDx talk in 2017, and I think that became my calling card or business card because it's only 5 minutes long.
Yes, yes. And it's been, I haven't watched it for a while, but I'd love to, I'll make sure I put a link to it underneath this, like in the show notes for this as well. But on that TEDx talk, Annie, I would love to know because I think, in this space, a lot of people, uh, well, a lot of people have a fear of public speaking. Number one,
Mm.
that probably stops them from speaking. But a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I'd love to be a speaker, or like they admire people that are on TEDx and those kinds of things. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming a TEDx speaker?
Yeah, well, it wasn't quite the normal TEDx journey or the normal public speaking, I think. I mean, I do a lot of that now. And how you can be a great public speaker is just by telling stories. We
Yeah.
want as adults, we want to be read to, really. And so if you're telling stories that connect with your own story or your clients, whatever, then find your stories, and you'll be able to tell those then. So my TEDx talk was in my 50th year, where I was turning 50, and I didn't have a bucket list. I just said I was going to do 50 new things, which meant I had to say yes to every challenge that came up that year. And it got a little bit difficult at times. So my dear friends bought me a skydiving gift, which I definitely did not want to do, but had to say yes to it.
Oh,
If you,
was
if
this
any
like
of your,
leading up to turning 50, Annie? I'm just wondering. Or,
yeah,
oh,
yes, and I'll tell you why, because about 6 months before I was 50, I was asked if I would like to swim around Brighton Jetty and dress up as Marilyn Monroe and raise some money for Cancer Council. And I kind of just went, yes, I'd had a couple of wines, I have to admit by then. And I got home and my husband said, I know you love charity fundraising, you love dressing up, but sweetheart, you can't really swim, can you? And that's a true story. And I thought, well, I could just be a shore Marilyn and I could waft around in my dress, or I could actually learn to swim. I've got 6 months to do it. And this is crazy. I live near the beach in Glenelg and can't swim. So that's what I do. I literally Googled, I think, how to learn to swim at 50. And Google, of course, gave me some answers and books and videos. And I went to the local swimming pool 3 times a week. And then
yeah.
2 weeks before my 50th birthday, I did that thing. And you actually don't need to swim very well because they give you a great big ring to swim in. So you can't really
Yes.
do proper swimming in it. So that
But it's
was
good
that
in
was the
case you
lead
fall
up.
out, right?
Exactly. So that was the start of, okay, well, now I'm going to say yes to everything. And, stupid things like in Thailand, do you want to eat some crickets in this market? Like, well, I've got to say yes. So all sorts of things that I would not have
Mm.
chosen to do normally. And then someone said, I dare you to do a TEDx talk. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, only famous people do TEDx talks, which I've now found isn't true. But I'll just apply. So I'll say, yes, I'll apply. I'm not going to get a place, but at least I can say, yes, I've applied. So I typed in, I bet I can make Adelaide Town Hall, which would be 1,000 people, to laugh out loud without any jokes, and just pressed enter, send, and laughed at it and thought nothing more of it really. And then got a call 3 weeks later to say, you've got a spot. And I'd said, great, do I have 10 or 12 minutes like a normal TEDx speaker? And they said, well, you asked for 3 minutes. So you've got 3 minutes.
Oh.
Right. And TEDx is wonderful, and they provide lots of speaking coaching if you want it and need it. And I was brought on after quite a triggering talk or an activating talk, and so I was the pattern interrupt after lunch, I suppose. And because I was that, they said, "Look, it's so good. We're going to give you 6 minutes. We're going to double your time." And yeah, that was it. And I think, TEDx audiences are very loyal to their speakers and they want to hold you up and support you. So they're going to join in everything anyway. But
Mm.
I was quite surprised how many people laughed out loud. And I just give a little bit of a story about anxiety across the world. And then, yeah, we just started laughing. And then I was leaving and someone said, that was so good, Annie. Is there a book about what you just talked about? So what did I have to say back to him?
Yes. All right.
Yes, there was no book. But so I then had to Google, how to self-publish very quickly at 50 and got the book out 3 or 4 weeks later, I think.
Oh,
And
that's
that
so
just
good.
seems to be what the last 8, 9 years of my life has been like.
I love that, Annie. And it's such a great example of how things can change so quickly and how you can do things that you never thought you could do before. And I'm going to lead into this, but something that I'm taking from this, Annie, is that I actually turned 50 myself in just over a month, in middle of March. And I've sort of seen a couple of people doing these things before 50. I'm like, oh, I've left that a little bit late, right? But I'm like, okay, it doesn't have to be before 50. It could be, but it could be any time. It doesn't have to be a particular thing. And I think one of the things I've already started doing this a bit because there's a couple of things that happen. And one of my friends or clients who actually met through Toastmasters talking about public speaking a few years ago, she said to me, she goes, Toni, I'm going to a abundance festival in India. Would you like to come with me? And I was like, oh, I've never even thought about that. And started looking and I was like, and I went, do you know what, my gut feeling is that yes, I want to go. Like, it sounds like an incredible sort of adventure. So sort of looked into it, and now sure enough we're going off to India at the end of the
Oh,
I love that kind of thinking of just saying yes to
yeah.
things and working it out.
That's beautiful. So a couple of things. When you're in India, you must go and visit some of the parks and see if you can find people doing laughter yoga because that's where it's invented and they do it all over the country.
Oh, well,
Um,
I don't think we're going to be doing a lot of touring because we're going to this pretty intense, like 6 day abundance festival at Acom. I don't know if you've heard about Acom, but it's
wow.
apparently this like special kind of structure that's actually like an entity in itself. And they take you through all these processes, and it's all about awareness and, they do a lot of somatic stuff and breathing stuff and whatever. It's apparently pretty intense experience. So I don't think we're going to have capacity for doing a lot else. But yeah, it's exciting. And what I would love to ask though, Annie, because you've mentioned this word a couple of times, and I had to like clarify this word with you before we actually started recording. And this is the efficacy effect. Can you tell us a bit about this word efficacy and what it means and how you're applying it and what it's like, how it's related to you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I call it the part of burnout that no one talks about, mainly because no one knows what inefficacy or low self-efficacy really means. And burnout has three parts. It has what we always all know is the physical and emotional mental exhaustion, and we kind of know what that looks or feels like. That sense of um, cynicism, and sometimes people notice that in you before you notice that yourself. And then this third part called inefficacy, which is not my term. The phrase was coined back in the 70s by a social scientist called Albert Bandura. I have to be careful because sometimes I say Albert Banderas, but he's still alive. But Albert Bandura. And it is really you might have all the skills and all the steps, but unless you believe in yourself and in your confidence that you can actually be successful in those steps, then it's still not going to happen. And that's been a journey for me with my business, with my relationships, with a carer to my parents, etc. Is all right. I'm not great at looking after myself physically and mentally in those moments, but I know it's important. But what's this inefficacy side? How can I look after all those other areas, but still burn out or still manage to be successful in those steps, in whatever it might be? And it could be managing your stress. It could be playing the piano at your daughter's wedding next year and you want to learn a new skill. So you can apply it to anything in life. And we have different efficacy levels in different areas. So I often say, so I have high self-efficacy when it comes to public speaking, but I still have, let's say, medium efficacy levels around putting in a good tax return this year. So each year and I call it the inner MBA, I put all these things in place so that I can raise my belief that I can be better and better each year. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, yeah, it absolutely does. And it's definitely one of the things that, like, I've definitely found this in the business because, obviously I've evolved from life coaching and all those kinds of things and NLP training. And now primarily what I do is business coaching. And one of the things that I've found, and this is what I'm so passionate about, is it's not people finding the right technique or strategy for business. It's actually believing they're the person that can do it and that they can have the success of it.
Yeah.
Like that is the stuff. And it's getting rid of all of the stuff that is in the way or tells them otherwise, that then makes it super easy to do whatever strategy it is.
Absolutely. And that's, a big part of that is the people that you surround yourself with in that particular area, even in business. Like I knew that I needed to have a good bookkeeper because I was never actually going to be able to raise my efficacy levels, even though my dad was my bank manager, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
He didn't really teach me anything about money, unfortunately. So there are, it's having those people around that support you, having your friends that, I have a group of women in my life that don't really understand what I do for work at all and don't really care. But they are, they're my mates that I might cry with, for example, but they're not going to lift me up and make me feel better about my bookkeeping skills or my public speaking or my marketing or whatever. The
Yes. Yes.
coaches form a really good part of that.
Yeah, this is really interesting, Annie, as well, from a point of I've found, and I think, when I'm coaching people, that they so often just reflect the stuff that I've been working on for myself in some kind of way or another. But it says taking responsibility for getting your needs met as well. Like this is a thing I feel like this kind of ties in. Like when you were saying, I've got some friends that, I can connect with on an emotional level and they can support me in that way, that they're not going to support me about my bookkeeping. And it's like taking responsibility for yourself of not of getting those needs met. So not expecting those
Mm.
mates to be able to solve that, or not going, oh, I can't get my bookkeeping sorted out because these people won't help me with it. It's like,
Yep.
well, okay, clearly that's not their responsibility. It's not their strength. So I need to take responsibility of getting that sorted out somewhere else.
Yep. And I'm going to lose my friends if I sit and try and talk about bookkeeping every day with them. So, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, that part of it, especially in the different 17 or 18 careers that I've had.
Mm.
And also it was, so I trained to be a life coach in my 50th year again. I did it for about 18 months. We can have a whole chat off air as to why I decided not to do that anymore. And had you been around, I might still be doing it. Um, but I remember going to Sydney to be trained, and the first question was, what are your values? Because everything you do on a daily basis needs to be aligned with your values. I'm like, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. I
Yeah.
don't even know what it means. And then, I give clients 3 seconds to tell me what their values are. And I had to take a week to really understand how I wanted to show up in different areas of my life again. And you inherit your values from your parents initially, or your caretakers, some of us too. And then they change. They might change in your 20s. They certainly changed for me in my 50s.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when I get home from wherever I've been, or if I've been in my office all day, if I'm feeling a bit blah, as I call it, I know that I've done nothing aligned with my values that day. And
Mm.
that's okay. It's not okay really, but it's okay. Go to bed, start again tomorrow.
Yeah. That's is really I do a lot of work around people with their values, and I think it's such because I like absolutely if you're not aligned with your values, you're not going to feel right. And like you said, we often inherit these values from our parents and society and cultures and things that we grow up with. But the fact is, we can actually change our values, and this
Mm,
is really important. And I think the other side of this, around what people don't often understand about values, is that your values are just what motivate you in how you spend your time, your resources, your energy, all of that sort of stuff. They're not necessarily all good, inspiring, aspirational
mm,
things,
no.
and I think that's the thing that we have to be aware of, because there's things we're motivated to get away from and have less of, and there's things we're motivated to get more of. And one of the things about that, so business is so important in business as well, is that there are certain things that you need to be motivated to do in business, and so you need to have your values aligned with that. And of course, you've got your morals and integrity and all that kind of stuff that's got to come in with how you do it. But you've got to be motivated to do marketing. You've got to be motivated to
Yep.
do sales.
And
Yeah,
and back to that bookkeeping thing, which so my values are really at the moment, they're variety, which shows in all the different things I've done: variety, connection, compassion, and fun. So I have to have fun in everything I do.
yeah,
So my bookkeeping never used to be fun, and I would imagine that my dad was sitting on my shoulder saying, "You're not doing that correctly." So I have Money Monday and Freedom Friday at my stand-up desk, and I put on a Spotify playlist, and I literally move as I'm doing all my financial stuff twice a week. And I
yeah,
don't have to think about it in between those 2 days.
yeah,
And I have to have fun with it. And
yes.
it just makes it so much easier.
Well, and that's the basis of a lot of the work of Dr. John Demartini as well. Like the values factor, that book, The Values Factor by Dr. John Demartini, was probably one of the first personal development books that I really read. And that's basically what he says. He's like, whatever it is that you want to get done, link all the ways that doing that is going to get you more of what you want, and link together things that you enjoy. So,
Mm,
like you actually, there's going to be some kind of enjoyment about doing that thing.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
a lot of my friends are now retired, and they're like, what year are you retiring, Annie? When you're 60 next year? So I don't think I'm going to use the word. I'd
Yeah.
like to get to a stage where I don't have to work, but I never want to stop doing the stuff I do because I have so much fun with it. And if I can live my values every day and know
Yeah.
when to take breaks, etc., then
Yeah.
what's wrong with that?
Well, because it gives you a contribution, right? And there's very interesting story I heard about the word retirement and where it came from. I don't know how actually true it is, but it was along the lines of it was like a political thing, and there was like a political race, and these younger people wanted to win, and they knew the older people were a threat, so they invented this thing called retirement to get them out of the running. I don't know how true that is, but
Oh,
it kind of makes sense, because the whole retirement thing starts to make us believe that of a certain age you don't have as much value and you should be moving out of the workplace. And I think this is one of the problems why people have that like contributes to mental health problems as people are older, because they're no longer contributing, or they feel like
Mm,
they don't have anything to contribute. Um, I like, and I know it's this may not be an exact kind of crossover, Annie, but I'm also interested because I know that you are also have become or are becoming a dementia doula, which
mm.
I think Gabor Mate spoke a bit about this last night as well. He mentioned dementia as well, and I think links to childhood trauma and stresses and those kinds of things. What is your understanding about dementia and all of this stuff that we've been talking about, and what you're doing?
Yeah, it was interesting last night because I thought we'd got through the whole evening and I've read his book with no mention of the word until someone asked the question.
Wow.
And I've been really pondering that since I got up this morning because both my parents had forms of dementia. And it wasn't until last night where I realized, yeah, they actually both suffered quite badly in their separate childhoods.
Mm,
So my mum at 4 and my dad at 12. So
mm,
yeah, it's and it's only going to get worse because we're an aging population, etc. I think I can't even believe that I'm saying that I've been trained as a dementia doula. I haven't completely decided what I'm going to do with it. I'm just spreading um, the word that these people are out there. And it's a wonderful lady in Adelaide who's set up Dementia Doulas International, Dementia Doulas Australia, and she's got a big mission to train as many people as possible, men and women. And the difference with it, and I'll actually tell you a little story because I think this will explain it. I went into my library the day after I finished the training, and my aged care was set up in a little exhibition in the library. And I went running up to talk to them, and they probably thought, "Oh my goodness, this woman's coming. Let's give her a leaflet. She needs to talk to us." And I said, "Hello, I've just trained as a dementia doula." And they kind of sat up straight and went, "Okay. Do you know
mm.
what it is?" I told them what it, no, I didn't tell them what it was. That's right. And this one woman said, "Oh, is it some university thing?" No. So I told them all about Dementia Doulas International, and they still sat there kind of flabbergasted. That's a word. I haven't used that word for a while. And
Fabulous word.
uh, I looked at this woman in the middle who's probably about my age, and I said, "You realize it's for the families, don't you? It's not actually for the person with dementia. There's a lot of agencies working on that. This is for the families, for the carers." And she
Mm,
sat up and tears came down her face. And she said, my husband's been in a home for 3 years. He's 67. He has dementia. And if I'd known that these people were around 3 years ago, my journey would have been very different, but it's too late. And
mm.
that's when I said, but it's not too late. And also my business head is going, "I don't have any business cards yet. I only finished the training yesterday."
Yeah.
But at least my aged care know about it now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so that family members, don't give up their lives completely. It's how we can support them, not only, and it's advocating for that person that doesn't have a voice as well.
Yeah, I got
And
goosebumps when you said that, and that interaction with that lady, Annie,
mm,
because I think this is definitely one of the things that I think gets missed, is that we have all this focus on the people that have the illnesses or the conditions or the challenges, and there's a bit of a gap around, okay, but what about all the people that around them that are supporting them or trying to support them, and what is the effect that that has?
yeah, and it's huge.
Mm,
And it's that whole cliche, you like it or not like it, or when you're on an airplane and they ask you to put your own oxygen mask on first.
mm,
And often caregivers will put themselves at the bottom of that list. And it was not really until I actually started caring for my dad, once my mum had passed, is okay, I now know what's coming because I'd seen it with my mum. I'm
mm,
not going to get through this unless I look after myself in so many different ways.
mm.
But if there had been somebody that had my back, that was, we call ourselves the safety net, that was there to point me in the direction of resources, because it's absolute minefield out there once you have a diagnosis. And these people are trained from pre-diagnosis throughout the way up until end of life, and that could be a relationship with a family of 10 years. It's not a quick thing
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah, yeah. That's
So I'll come back to you for some business coaching on that when I start.
yeah. Yeah, I think like you're right though. Like there's an increasing sort of area where people are going to be having this as more part of their life. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's also why, I do a lot. I'm a bit obsessed about this vagus nerve thing and brain health at the moment, and
yeah,
to keep, so I don't get it, but also just to keep myself aware of all the changes and everything that's happening.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of that though, isn't it? It's that continuing having your own social connections and contributing and using your knowledge and experience and all of that things that keeps your brain actually healthy and active and firing the
Yep.
pathways and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, look it up. It's an incredible thing, and hopefully there'll be, people trained all over the world for this because this thing's not going away.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's brilliant. I'm really pleased that you're doing that, Annie. And I would love to. I've kind of been itching to get to this part of the episode, Annie.
Not literally.
I like my internal like little giggle button is like got like an itchy finger trigger happening. So I'm really excited, Annie. Can you go a little bit deeper into this laughter therapy? Or do you call it laughter therapy or laughter yoga or
Laughter yoga.
laughter yoga? Yeah, and I love that it's called yoga because I do yoga as well, and I get a lot out of that. So laughter yoga, just bringing two of my favorite things together. So tell us a bit more
Except
about this.
there's no yoga in it really. So I went to again in my 50th year, went to see the Dalai Lama speaking in Melbourne, and there was a breakout area at lunchtime. You could learn how to power nap. I was pretty good at that at the time. Or this thing called laughter yoga. My friend, I had to say yes again, and off I went. And 30 minutes later, I've never been on drugs, but I felt like I was on drugs, and I knew I needed to bring myself down to see the Dalai Lama come on stage. And I just felt incredible. And I said, I'm going back to Adelaide. I'm going to train in this. Poor husband, I dragged him to be trained in it too.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before, it was founded in India 30 years ago this year, actually, by a medical doctor who was doing some studies on our emotional health when we laugh. And he was telling jokes originally, and they were funny until they weren't funny anymore, and people stopped laughing. And the theory goes is that he was watching his wife doing yoga in the corner of their house, and thought, actually, how she's doing that pranayamic breathing is what we do when we laugh out loud. And so that's where
Mm.
laughter yoga came from. And he's trained hundreds, thousands of people around the world, and his mission is to create world peace through laughter, which is incredible. So I did it for that TEDx talk, and we all know how we feel after a really great laugh, but
Mm.
we have to rely on our friends to laugh with, or a funny movie, or a comedian at a fringe show, whatever. And this is intentional laughing. So ideally, it's done in groups. You and I are going to do it together, but I do it by myself. I'll give you a little thing that you can do during the day by yourself, and doesn't need to take very long. I mean, the giggle game itself is a pattern interrupt during a school day of maybe 3 minutes, three times a day.
Mm.
And it has the most incredible benefits, mainly because when you're actually, and the bizarre thing is, even if I've already given you warning, Toni, but if you didn't want to laugh today, I would still probably encourage you to do it. Because once you start laughing, even if you're faking it, your body moving, even smiling, sends a message to your brain that you're happy. And then it decreases your cortisol stress hormone, and it
Ah.
floods your body full of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and often melatonin as well. So people sleep really well after these sessions.
Ah. Does
So
that mean I'll get
it's
a better tan as well? Is that what melatonin does?
is the what's yeah. I think
I'm
that's
like,
something
it's getting
different.
better by the minute. But Addie, I have to let you in and let you know, like I can make myself laugh by myself. I work from home by myself and I'm quite happy. I quite enjoy my own company. And I can make myself giggle just like thinking about stuff. And like I was sharing with you in NLP a big like in anchoring, when we can anchor in positive state, so you can access a positive state at any time, laughter is one of the best states to anchor because it's one of the most powerful ones, and it's very easy. Like I've found it very easy to elicit it in other people. And it's funny, as you were speaking then, it was reminding me when I was little, and like I shared before, there was a lot of depression in my family. I was known for telling jokes, but I would never deliver the punchline because I would crack myself up before I actually got to the punchline. And it didn't matter because everyone would just laugh at me laughing anyway. And so it was like, it was literally, I was known for it as a young child. And so I'm excited for this. I'm ready.
It's a great story.
Like,
All right. So, and you and I will do this, and then when your listeners are listening in, they can do it with us. I'm going to show you where your laughter comes from first. So, if you put two fingers onto your throat, and you're going to take a big deep breath in, and as you breathe out, you're just going to make the he sound.
okay.
H-E-E, he. All right,
Okay.
until you get to the end of your out breath, ideally. So, a big deep breath in. And then beautiful. And you can feel your throat vibrating. So that's going back to the
Yeah.
humming as well. That's the whole vagus nerve stimulating it.
Mm.
And your natural laughter came in pretty quickly then. That won't work with everybody, but just making that sound is still telling the brain that it's okay and
Yeah.
that we're safe, which is really great.
Yeah.
Hand on your chest.
Yeah.
And we're going to make it big deep breath in. As you breathe out, make the ha sound.
Okay.
Breathe in. Ha
Ah.
ha 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 ha. See how it goes. And then last one, hands on your belly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll see if I can remember to tell you the Santa. So Santa's, just been, hopefully. But I'll tell you a Santa story if we've got time.
Okay.
So this is where we want our laughter to come from. This is the big belly breathing, belly laughing. So you're going to make the ho, ho, ho sound this time. So we're going to breathe in and see if you can get your belly moving. Fabulous. So that would be the start of a session. And then, I'm doing a whole hour on a conference to Canada tomorrow morning. But we've got a lot of different activities up our sleeves for laughter yoga experts. But we're going to do a couple of things with our mobile phone. So
can I just ask, Annie, before we do that,
yeah.
like one of the things that I find is whenever I laugh, my eyes water. Is that a thing for everybody? I feel like
Yes,
my eyes water a lot, but what does
it
that?
is. And those, it's quite near to those crying glands as well.
Mm.
Session, which can last up to an hour, and we do a laughter meditation at the end, which is lying on your back, and you're not making eye contact with anyone, but you've laughed for pretty much 45 minutes, and you look to the ceiling and you just start laughing, and people are literally rolling around on the floor in hysterical laughter sometimes. Some people just sit there and take in the gift of laughter from everyone else, and lots of people do end up crying at the end of it, but it's just the most incredible release.
Yeah,
And that might have been the first time they've done it.
Like I'm crying, but it's just like my eyes water while I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been watering since you were a kid telling those jokes, obviously.
Yes, they have. It's not good for eye makeup, Annie. That's the only
No,
problem.
it's not. No, it's not.
All right. So I've got my mobile phone.
So this would be one thing I do on a daily basis, and I attempt to do it every day, even if I don't think I'm stressed, because it's such a quick release and it's making me feel better during the day anyway. So if I'm out dog walking, I would have my mobile phone. So I'm going to put your mobile phone to your ear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you're just walking wherever you are around Adelaide, and you're imagining that someone imagine Toni is telling you the funniest joke as a 7-year-old down the phone. She can't even get the punchline out because she's laughing so much. And you're just going to laugh with her.
Okay.
So we're just going to, because we're choosing to laugh. Awesome. So you're brilliant at this. Now, when you're walking through Adelaide, no one knows that there's no one at the end of the other line.
Oh, I like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get the whole
Yes.
phone thing now. Yeah, yeah.
So that's your little tool that you can take into your day. And we're going to do, there's a thing called the Laughy, which has been created around the world. And it's supposed to be 1 minute, but we're just going to do 30 seconds. And that's for a long time. And the
Yeah.
idea is that you have your phone ready on uh, video
Okay.
and then
Okay.
reverse it. So you're
That's
like doing a
easy. That will
selfie, but
help.
it's a
Yeah.
video. And this is called the laughy. And what you're going to do is we're going to laugh together, but you're laughing with yourself. So you're not laughing at yourself. We never laugh at each other. We're laughing together. And we're
Yes.
just going to laugh, choose to laugh because we can for 30 seconds. And I will give you a countdown in the last 5 seconds. Trust me, this goes on for quite a long time.
Okay.
And then the idea is when you need this, which sounds like you don't even need it, you're just going to play it back as many times as you want during the
I
day.
probably still like playing it back anyway because
All right, are you ready? So I'm going to go three, two, one, and then we're just going to laugh.
okay.
Remember to do nice, big, deep breaths in between. So you're not going to choke on your laughter or anything. Okay.
Okay, good. That's a good tip.
Three, two, one, press go. 5 seconds left. And stop. Wow. Well done. You're still laughing. Look, I can see you on
Yeah,
Zoom
I
still
could keep
laughing.
laughing. I could keep laughing.
And then just check in with what you're feeling now. So, with
My eyes are a
kids,
bit
I
wide.
would say, obviously we're teaching kids emotional literacy and these big emotions that they need to learn how to feel and express after what we heard last night. But why can't we teach kids what I call greet the giggle? So after the laughter, where do you feel that laughter in your body? Where do you feel it?
Yeah, well, you know what's really interesting, Annie, is like, oh, I feel like a bit of tingling sensation, and I feel like in my belly, actually, I feel this bit of a tingling sensation and a little bit in my shoulders, and it feels like a little bit like it feels from it's like a breathing thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
when I've done my
yeah.
breathing exercises
Breath work,
before is when I
absolutely.
felt this. Yes.
Yep, yep. So
Yeah.
any age can do that. And yeah, if we can learn how to greet the giggle and where we find it. And I just feel just a little bit lighter. That's the only way I can describe it at the moment.
Yes.
There's no perfect way to feel. It's just noticing it really. And that's
Yes.
a really great way. I've never done this, but there's lots of people that go into the middle of the forest and scream for 20 minutes or something. But we can
Yeah.
do that through laughter.
Yeah, I'm not like that whole screaming thing. I kind of get it, but it's not really as appealing to me as laughing. I'm like, I feel like laughing is like you're still shifting energy in your body and you're still using your voice. And I think that's the thing. Like, could you speak quickly to that if that's a thing part of this? Like the actual, I guess it's the vibration or something as well, is it? Like what, that because it's something about that, like I know for me, I have to verbalize things. And I think laughing's similar. Like I can't just write stuff to
Mm,
necessarily process. There needs
yeah,
to be some kind of
yeah.
verbal thing. Yeah.
I like that. That's a great thing.
Mm.
And with your NLP, you should train to be a laughter yoga leader, I think, Tony.
I
Because
think
when
it's
we do a
part of
full
my calling.
session, there's actually some people in the world that do laugh gnosis, it's called. So when you've
Yeah.
done that laughter meditation, you're in a state of suggestion effectively. And it could be that we're all gonna say that we're gonna have a great positive day ahead after the session or something. But that's quite an interesting area that some people have written about.
That's that's so fascinating, Annie. I think I do that already. I think I'm already doing laugh gnosis, if that's what it's
Mm,
called, because it's a big part of how I work with
yeah.
people. Wow, that's really interesting. You've got me very interested in that.
Mm,
I'm going to definitely be finding out about that because, like I said, I've always loved laughing, and I think having more reason to back it up and me not seeming just like some crazy person is even better. But yeah. Oh, Annie Harvey, this has definitely been probably the most elevating episode that I've ever had, because I love talking to people who really do, bring so much to the world. And but I certainly have never laughed this much on a podcast episode. So this is brilliant. I've absolutely loved it. And as we're wrapping up, and hopefully this is all good still, is there any final words that you would like to share on this episode, Annie? Are there any particular resources or anything that you would like to be able to share with our audience? Obviously, I'll put all the links to how to find you underneath the in the show notes, but is there any particular resources or best way for people to get in contact with you about speaking is one of the big things that I know that you do, keynote speaking.
Yep.
And the programs that you do. Yes, what would you share?
So would love people to watch if you just Google TEDx Annie Harvey, you'll find it. My website is thestilleffect.com.au. And it's really, it's about giving yourself permission to just put a bit more lightness and fun into your day, even when you really don't think you've got much lightness and fun in your day. That's the time to
yeah. I think, one of the things I always say is that you can choose to feel good regardless, right? Regardless of what's going on.
Absolutely. It's a choice. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, Annie, I feel like we could keep talking for a long time, but we'll wrap it up for now, and we'll have to have another chat another time. Absolutely. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on as a guest, and I'll definitely pop a note to link to your TEDx in the show notes. So thank you.
Thank you so much.